What's good, YouTube fam? It's your boy Tony, aka Descendant of Chaos and Controversy, and of course, my content is made with the intention to balance the scales. So, with that being said, I posted a video. It was a video that was on TikTok, and I posted it to my platform. And just not even moments ago, one of those people who are subscribed to me, a faithful follower of mine, Lisa D, have pointed out that there are way too many laws on the books, and this is something that I wholeheartedly agree with, 1,000%. And based on that comment and that statement, I said, you know what? This is a damn good issue to put on the table for discussion. I look at all these laws because there are definitely way too many laws, and I try to break down the intent behind why these laws are put on the books and put into action to have us as citizens conform to and abide by. Okay? But when you look at all these things that were considered laws, so to speak, and when you go back to the origins and how there were laws that were once put into place, then taken away, um, kind of reconstructed in a sense, um, changed or whatever. And I look at like using the examples of how once at one point it was illegal for anybody of either those who were white or those who were black to get involved in any kind of relationship. It was illegal, which was kind of hypocritical because if you looked at those during that time, like the slave masters and stuff that owned slaves, why was it okay for them to go and rape the women, have these children that came out to be biracial, and either they survived, got killed, or put in particular positions so that, as time went on, they could use those individuals to pit them against the black folks that were not mixed, and so on and so forth. But if you decided to get involved with a person at your own free will, not out of a forced situation, there were laws put in place to say you can't get married, you can't be together. And it took that couple in Virginia to challenge those laws and for them to, do away with that. Because on a moral standpoint, it was wrong. you know and that's part of the reasons why I sit there and I talk about sometimes when I listen to these pro-black people that tend to be somewhat anti-white, um and have a thing against interracial relationships. Again, how are you any different from white people who had an issue with it? Again, don't sit there and be pointing the finger at other people if your views tend to line up. Quick to say, oh, that's racist. Oh, da 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 da. But you adapt the same ideology. How does that make sense? You're being a hypocrite. And just for the record, people getting involved in interrelationships didn't just all of a sudden happen. It's been happening. It's been happening under the radar, under the laws that they said that didn't permit that it deemed illegal. And the consequences of that, well, if it wasn't death, it was another type of penalty that was, you may as well just say, you know what, just take me out the equation. So sometimes when I listen to some of these issues being addressed, I sit back and I'm like, but speaking in the current climate of today's situation, for those who decide to take up law, go into law school, I understand why there's so many years invested in becoming a lawyer and taking the bar and stuff. But I'm a man who looks at things like just take the laws that are deemed necessary to provide structure where there is no chaos within society and keep it simple. But because there's always some kind of ulterior motive where something's got to be beneficial to the interests of particular groups or a particular party, for the most part, to cut through all the bullshit, the purpose and the intention of a lot of these laws that we might all agree may deem to be unnecessary is for the whole and sole purpose to generate revenue. To walk across the street and say, okay, we're going to call that jaywalking and stuff, and you get a fine for it, it's stupid. Because like in some of these areas, like especially like in Houston, I can tell you right off the rip, they don't have sidewalks. But it's a heavily policed state. Okay? Or city or whatever. And to have a cop roll up on you and say you're jaywalking and you're whatever, where are you supposed to walk? Especially if you don't have no mode of transportation. And you decide to disregard placing sidewalks where the public are able to walk. But yet you're going to penalize them for something that's not a place, for them to move or get around. Profit. I'll take another one. When a cop pulls you over and says, hey, your brake light is out. How are you supposed to know your brake light is out? Unless, it is brought to your attention. But why are you penalized for something that you're unaware of? Do you drive on the inside of the car or do you drive on the outside of the car? And they don't have anything within the vehicles that'll tell you, just like when you're about to run out of gas, you know you're about to run out of gas because your gas light comes on. But does an indication to say, hey, your brake light out, comes into the car to say, hey, just to let you know, your brake light is out before a cop pulls you over, and then what happens? You get a citation or a ticket. I mean, I'm just using a few asinine examples as to show you that it is indeed true. The purpose of these laws or whatever that's put, or policies or statutes put into place to generate revenue at the expense of us citizens. It's like as if there's not enough financially. That's a toll and a burden and a headache and stress that we have to figure things out. Then all these other inconveniences come into play. I did a video not too long ago speaking on a civil asset forfeiture, where if you're traveling and say you do get pulled over by law enforcement for a simple traffic violation, and then they won't be all nosy and pry into your business and ask to search your car, and just because we have this supposed war on drugs, which is a bunch of bullshit, but that's a video for another time. But they use that excuse as to, one, rob you. What are you doing with this much money? Who the fuck are you to question another adult why they have the amount of money that they do? Not everything is a conclusion to be drawn and jumped to just because America has an issue with drugs, which they created to begin with. I'm just saying. And made a profit off of it by creating the laws, creating private prisons, and these little stupid, how should I say, reasons to want to take money from a person's off of them. But don't charge them with anything. We're just going to take the money. That's piracy. You're legalizing piracy for people in uniform to rob you. Just because they assume something without proof, without evidence. It's just you got a large sum of cash on you. So it's illegal to have money on you without the conclusion being drawn that it is drug related. You could own a business. You could have got your tax return. You could have probably just got a loan out the bank and you're transferring the money to go bring it to whoever it is to buy property or something like that. And then people say, well, why don't you just write a check? Or why don't you do this? Sometimes, but then again, where's the laws to say this is how you should conduct business because it is the law? Otherwise, you might run into this situation. Well, it doesn't seem like it's the proper business ethic to just travel. But who wrote that into law? Who wrote that into policy? And who are you to make that judgment call? I just wonder that shit. You're just making excuses to justify why somebody should get robbed legally because you rushed to judgment and drew your own conclusions and say, oh, it must be because of drugs. It must be like everything's all drug related. And that's the problem with the conditioning and the indoctrination of this fucking country. You just plant the seed of some bullshit and it grows and everybody just jumps all on board on the bandwagon until it starts affecting people and say, oh, we intended it to really target these particular people, but now we're saying this shit got out of hand. Now it's affecting everybody. Now we're on the hot seat, and now we gotta answer some uncomfortable questions because of the laws and the policies and the statutes that we knew was unreasonable to begin with, but we put them on the books anyway because we were hoping and praying that the ignorance of the people will be something that we can use to our advantage to drain them financially. It's one thing to know that law exists, but it's another thing to understand why it exists and for what purpose and who does the purpose serve. I can understand, say for example, drunk driving. You shouldn't drink. You shouldn't drive if you're drunk because it does put the safety at risk for you and others. I can understand that law. But if you're drunk and say, okay, I'm not gonna fucking take my car, I'm just gonna walk home, then you get hit with public intoxication. And it's crazy. It's just like, and then it's like, well, why don't you call a cab? Maybe you didn't have money to fucking call a cab because you ran out of money getting drunk. You know, it happens. But, you know, it's just crazy. And then don't get me talk about the laws of drugs, because I also talk about the scapegoats. You look at the people who are the dealers and you look at the people who are the addicts. But you never talk about the big players, the actual players. I'm not talking about like the cartels or I'm talking about these government agencies within our country that has their hand into the bullshit as to why drugs do exist in this country and how they profit off of it and how they use it to their own benefit to either fund these militias or these other people in other countries and stuff like that. And we're just pawns. So, it's just crazy. And, you know, like looking at it from one perspective, and I said this when I was attending Catholic school and stuff, and I started to understand like society and studying religion and stuff. And I did make it a point to say that God made life simple, man came along and just complicated it. And I say that because it's true. It's just like life would be so much simpler if there wasn't so many unnecessary damn rules to follow. Rules, yes, to keep structure and order for that purpose and that purpose alone. But then we start adding all this extra shit unnecessarily on top of it, then it's not for the benefit of society, just for certain special interest groups and towns and cities and whatever, at the expense of the citizens. And it's not fair. And I can understand why people are getting upset with the government and getting upset with these politicians and getting upset with these so-called leaders and stuff, because they're doing everything for their own personal gain at our expense. That's why I said I'm not the type of person to sit there and say, yeah, I'm voting for this person or I'm voting for that person, because they all can be corrupted. And I'm just looking at, for example, the lady, when I came to Dixon, she was the treasurer, Rita Cromwell, stole millions from the town. But white woman, since you want to talk about black on black crime, let's talk about the white on white crime on a financial aspect. Took millions from the town of Dixon. So when the people were talking about we needed new tires for our trucks to like go do the roads and we needed money for this to go pave the roads and fix the roads, there's nothing in the budget. But, she had money to go get these thoroughbreds. There's a documentary called All the Queen's Horses, and it's particularly about Rita Cromwell. Look it up if you think I'm bullshit. But I do. All the revenue, if the revenue isn't generated through the tolls on the tolls on the road, and getting hit with all these violations and citations, or being taxed ridiculously, I mean, it's just crazy. And everything is taxed beyond a ridiculous, I mean, everything. And then people sitting there wondering, how come we can't pay for this? Or why was we able to survive years ago and provide a household for our family under one income? Now it takes two people working with two jobs and stuff like that. And there's no time spent in the family home, because you want to talk about the family structure being fucked and going with that go-to, a single parent household. Well, when you still got a two family household and you sitting there talking about, well, where's the disciplinary when it comes to the children? Well, goddamn, if the parents gotta fucking work just to stay financially afloat, just to adhere to what is expected of them on a financial aspect and stuff like that, you ain't gonna have nobody home to tend to the kids, because you're too busy trying to meet your financial obligation. So there isn't no fucking family time. It's just people just being workhorses and shit. And stressing. This isn't the America that people dreamed of. And it goes way beyond just the whole racial issue. When you detach the racial issues and you looking at just the issues just in general that affects everybody who aren't privileged financially to not have to worry about any financial issues, but we're the working mechanisms to make these motherfuckers rich that decide our fate, make the rules that we have to follow, but they don't. Yeah, it's a problem. Anyway, that's just something that Lisa D had brought to my attention. And yes, there are way too many laws, and I think that there need to be a recess in this country where we go back to the drawing board and start fucking editing shit. Cause it's just too much, and it's not working for us. It's working against us. And we're going to get to a point where the tools to are put in place to keep us provided are going to be those same tools that's going to bring us together and unite us. And when that happens, there ain't going to be enough law enforcement, there ain't going to be enough military to fucking stop us. Because if we all come together in unison and say enough is a fuck enough, either you go back to the drawing board and figure some shit out, or we'll figure it out for you. Because American people are getting to a point where we're getting sick and tired of people trying to fucking dictate to us and say this is in our best interest when it's really catering to your best interest. And we're getting fucked in the process. I'm just saying. Anyway, until next time, until next video, please like, share, and subscribe. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment in the comment section. And you already know. Peace.